Crossovers can be, interesting things. Especially if the crossover in question crosses over two things that you would not expect. Like today's story, for instance. Jessica versus the Thing, Ice Cave Showdown. This story crosses over Murder, She Wrote with The Thing. Interesting choice. A very interesting choice. The author, Eurocat. Sound familiar? It should. Eurocat was the bloke who wrote that oh-so-charming story about Christian Grey and a grill having a romantic relationship. Milo Kitty was the one who requested this story, and honestly, this was not what I was expecting. It wasn't bad. It was actually rather coherent. Was it good, though? It was okay. It was okay. So, it's rated T. It's in English. It's horror, humor. Has 3 chapters, about 4.5 thousand words, almost. 3 reviews, 1 faves, and it was published in September of 2020, and it was completed in June of 2020. So, the chapter opens up with Jessica. She had received a letter from her friend Nick. He wants her to come up north to visit him with his colleagues. They're scientists up in the north. So, it goes about her thoughts about, I don't know if I want to do this, but, I have nothing better to do, and I want to leave the harbour because it looks too much like the beach from Jaws. Okay, random fact there. So, she decides to go up north, and apparently her way up resembles her just taking a lot of taxis and lifts, so I'm assuming she flew a plane up there. I would imagine it would just be more efficient to just, fly there the entire way because, you're going way up north, up in Canada. But I digress. So, she finally arrives, and her friend Nick decides to introduce her to his co-workers, whose names are Rick and Dick. So, the 3 of them, Nick, Rick, and Dick. Creative. Very creative names. Especially seeing 2 of the names are the same names, because Rick and Dick are both nicknames for Richard. They'll never understand why Dick is a nickname for Richard, because there's no Dick in Richard at all. Like, none. Richard. I mean, no, I don't get it. It's kind of like how Billy is a nickname for William. And apparently, Meg is a nickname for Margaret. Even though Meg itself is, a nickname for the name Megan. It just doesn't make any sense. I should ask Megan if her name is actually Margaret. I know it's not Margaret. I know her name is actually Megan, but I don't know. Technically, her name could be Margaret because Meg is a nickname for Margaret, apparently. It doesn't make any bloody sense. Or Nellie being a nickname for Eleanor. Well, Eleanor... I guess I can kind of see that. Let's get back on topic. So anyway, the 3 of them, Nick, Rick, and Dick, and they all rhyme too. So, Dick is quite literally a dick. Like, the 2 of them, like, Rick's not too bad, but Dick is, like, being super rude to Jessica and stuff. Like, at first he thought she was Maggie Smith from the Harry Potter films, and it's like, oh, no, this is a famous, novelist. And, he's kind of being snooty about it. And, she's, kind of giving it back to him, but he's just being an utter ass and just storms off. Rick is just there, doesn't really say much. He's just kind of quiet. And, after the 2 of them leave, Jessica and Nick are by themselves. And she's pretty much like, yes, you have very interesting friends. I'm actually surprised by them. Dick definitely lives up to his namesake. So, yes. So the reason why Rick and Dick left were they were going to go to an ice cave to examine like a very weirdly formed carcass, like a frozen but weirdly shaped carcass. Well, okay, one of them, they both were supposed to, but then one of them, I think Dick was the one who decided to go and chop wood. So Rick was the one who decided to go into the cave. And I think Dick was going to follow after chopping the wood and whatnot. So, he goes into the cave and, he's talking about how, weird the corpse is all set up and whatnot. And then he has like this weird, like a sharp hook-shaped bone. It like erupts out of the carcass and it pierces through his hand. And, he yells out, and then it flashes back to, the cottage where Jessica and Nick are. And Nick is like, okay, I suppose I'll go and investigate because Jessica is insisting that he does so. So the chapter ends with her saying, I don't have a good feeling about this. And this is after Nick. Yes, Nick. Sorry if I'm getting the names mixed up. It's confusing to know which one's which. All I know is that Dick is the asshole, so that's the easiest one. So anyway, Nick goes to investigate the screaming sound, and Jessica's like, hey, I have an uneasy feeling about this. I'm going to make some tea. Oh, yes, make some tea. I mean, sometimes tea can help. I don't think in this situation it would help, though. So the second chapter, she's, making tea, and Nick has gone outside to investigate what's going on. So he goes and talks to Dick, and Dick is, being a dick. So Nick decides to investigate further by going into the cave, and he tries to wake Rick up, and Rick actually does wake up. So Nick decides to bring him back into the cottage, or the lodge, I should say, cottage lodge. So back in the lodge, Jessica is getting more and more tense. She knows that something isn't right. I guess her spider senses are going off. And someone comes into the house, and at first she thinks it's Nick, but then it turns out to be, Dick being a dick. And quite literally, he's just being a bloody dick. And then the door opens again, and this time Nick comes in, dragging Rick. I really wish they went with different names. It's so confusing. Rick, Nick, and Dick. Rick, Nick, and Dick. I mean, hello. You could have done like Nick, Tom, John. No, not John. You could have gone Nick, Tom, Jerry. Or, if you wanted to keep the asshole named Dick, you could have had it be like Ian, Dick, and Tom, or something like that. Not Nick, Rick, and Dick. It's just bloody blah. So anyway, they bring him inside, and Dick is screaming about, oh, get first aid, and yada, 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 and Rick's insisting that he's fine, and Jessica just feels like something is off, so Nick and Rick decide to leave, Nick and Dick decide to leave Jessica alone with Rick. I feel like I'm in a Dr. Seuss story. So she senses that something is off, and the kettle is going off, so she goes to take care of the tea, and Rick all of a sudden is standing up and is acting all fine, and he's asking if anything's wrong. And she's like, okay, why are you all standing? And he's like insisting that he's fine. And then she's like, I feel like something's different than before. And then she's like, wait a minute, your clothing is different. And because of her pointing out that his clothing is different, he decides to become the thing, and he tries to attack her. So she threw the tea at the monster, and then she runs out of the lodge. Or now it's a cottage. Okay, so they keep on going back and forth on if it's a lodge or a cottage. So we'll just say it's a cottage. So, she runs out. She runs into Dick and Nick. And, Dick literally, every time they say what his dialogue is, he's always yelling. Like, every single line of dialogue is supposedly him yelling. I imagine that if he lives with anyone, they probably need to get hearing aids because they can't hear anything anymore because he's always yelling all the time. He must be related to the late Billy Mays. So anyway, Jessica says that Rick became a monster, and she's telling them to run, and then Dick doesn't believe her, but then right as she says that, and right when he's like, oh, have you gone mental, that's when the monster comes out of the cottage and starts chasing after them. Excuse me. So Dick's, for some reason, has a flamethrower. Okay. And I guess because of scientists, I guess you could use the flamethrower for melting things, whatever. So anyway, he uses the flamethrower to, kill the monster, and it's charred beyond recognition. It's clearly dead. And then Jessica's like, oh, did you get him? No, I don't think he did. I think he needs to bend him a little bit more. So that's the end of chapter bloody 2. So the next chapter, Dick is like, what is this thing? And Jessica's like, well, that used to be Rick, and then he turned into this thing. And, Nick is like, well, how the bloody hell did this happen? And she's like, well, obviously something happened to him. He must have gotten attacked by something. So they deduce that the thing that attacked him must have come from the corpse that they had found in the cave. So Dick decides to go to the cave to destroy the corpse, just in case there's more of the things crawling about and whatnot. So after he leaves, Jessica realizes that one of them is possibly the monster as well, because she still feels uneasy. So her friend Nick comes in, and, it doesn't take long. This is where it gets rather predictable. It turns out that Nick is one of the monsters as well. So before anyone had come into the cottage after her, and because she sensed that one of them was possibly the monster, she decides to, make a rice cooker bomb. And when Nick reveals himself to be the monster, she blows him up with it. And she decides to go and look for Dick. And she decides to prepare herself, because I think we all know where this is going. He's probably going to be a monster too. So she goes to follow the trail of the three men. She finds blood-stained footprints in the snow, and then she's trying to deduce where Nick was killed and whatnot. And then she finds the torn-up jacket of Rick, because it was established that Rick, he's the first one who had died. He wore a green jacket when, before he got taken over by the monster. And, what made her realize that he was different was that he was wearing a black jacket. So anyway, she goes and finds Dick. Dick had, burned the monster and stuff. And he's surprised that he saw her. And she has a flamethrower, so she pretty much took his flamethrower and brought it with her to find him. And she pretty much says, oh, Nick was one of those creatures too. And then she points the flamethrower at him. And he's like, oh, you're just being paranoid. And she's like, oh, no. I know that you are a monster because the original Dick had a tattoo on his neck, a tattoo of a lady in a bikini. So, Dick reveals that he's a monster, and they have this huge standoff, and they're exchanging words. And even though she's an old elderly lady, and I'm assuming this is supposed to take place in current times because they comment about Harry Potter and whatnot. So, Angela Lansbury, she's up in her 80s. But, somehow she's overpowering this monster, and because she has old leathery skin, that's why he can't penetrate her, something silly like that. So she doesn't kill him, she just kind of scares the monster to go into hibernation for 10,000 years, and then she's screaming at it, and don't ever come back. So, she decides to apparently leave by foot to return to her quiet neighborhood. So it's implied that she walked from up north in Canada all the way back down to the States to where she lives. She must be in really good shape if she can pull that off. So, back at her home, her friend Dr. Seth Hazlitt, I don't know if that's an actual character from her show or not, he asks how her trip to Canada was, and she's like, oh, well, it wasn't good at first, but then everything worked out in the end, and I have a lot of motivation, and I'm going to become a science fiction writer. So it's kind of implying that she's the one that actually wrote the thing, or something silly like that. And then it says that it ends with her frozen in a position with a smile, and then it plays the outro music to Murder, She Wrote, and that's how the story ends. I mean, it was an okay story. It wasn't perfect. It had plenty of issues with it. I mean, the beginning bit, I kind of felt like it read like a summary. But compared to, the Bobby Q fanfiction, it wasn't that bad. It was an easy read, too. Not too long. Kind of a silly story, but nothing bad. I mean, it wasn't that bad at all. And it kind of makes me curious to check out Cat's other stories. I mean, if they're if they're not all silly, stupid things like Bobby Q, and if they're kind of coherent like this, I don't think I would mind that at all. So yes, not a bad story. Well, thank you all for watching today's episode. If you liked it, please be sure to like and leave a comment. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. I would greatly appreciate it. Until then, cheerio.